Krystal, what are you taking a look at today?
Well, guys, Kyrsten Sinema is the literal worst. This, in my mind, is a nonpartisan statement of fact. She's the worst because she blatantly does the bidding of the donor class. She is the worst because she shamelessly postures for her post-Senate career of cashing in. She's the worst because she ran on a slate of popular issues, things like prescription drug reform that she just casually abandoned once Big Pharma asked her to. Do you need more proof? Well, here she is, suddenly dropping her support for Medicare negotiating prescription drug pricing in exchange for hundreds of thousands of dollars in positive ads from Big Pharma. Great work, Daily Poster there. Here she is meeting with the very corporate interests that could profit off of killing the reconciliation bill as she blatantly goes out and does their bidding. Here she is, leaving DC in the middle of critical negotiations so that she can go meet with her big dollar donors at a high-end resort and spa in Phoenix. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is all just within the past 2 weeks. When you look at the long trajectory of her career, you can see an even grosser transformation from principled anti-war activist to brazen corporate sellout. It's all so blatant as to be one of the most shameless displays of corruption I have seen in DC, and that is a really high bar. But somehow, many in the press refuse to see it that way. Where anyone with 2 working brain cells could see a bought-off politician playing the donor class, somehow they see a brave trailblazer setting an independent course. Somehow it never occurs to them that while that course might be independent of what voters want, it is in lockstep with what her donor class wants. But perhaps the most grotesque part of all of their recent glowing portraits of Kyrsten Sinema is their insistence that all of her personal attributes and quirky character traits are somehow more important than the fact that she is casually denying people affordable prescription drugs and a livable wage. Here is just a sampling of some of the worst of that coverage over just the past few days. So Axios, they want you to know, Kyrsten Sinema's allies have some free advice for anyone trying to bully the wine-drinking triathlete into supporting Biden's $3.5 trillion budget bill. She doesn't play by Washington's rules and she's prepared to walk away. She doesn't play by Washington's rules? Since when do Washington's rules not include doing whatever your corporate handlers tell you to do? That is literally the rule of Washington. The accompanying article goes out of its way to mention Sinema's eccentric dress or sexual orientation and has quite a lot of detail about her exercise habits as well. Listen to this line and try not to puke. She's unconventional. See recent internship at a Sonoma winery, and a force to be reckoned with. She's known to rise between 4 and 5 a.m. to train for her next race, and she was forced to take up aqua jogging after breaking her foot this summer in something called the Light at the End of the Tunnel Marathon. Friends, I do not give a single fart about what time Kyrsten Sinema wakes up in the morning. I care that the sum total of her waking hours seem to be spent taking bags of cash in exchange for making the country worse. Here's another line from that same piece. Progressives could be forgiven for presuming that Sinema, 45, the first openly bisexual member of Congress, who's easy to spot in her trademark sleeveless dresses, wry wigs, and acrylic glasses, would share their woke politics. Guys, wanting old people to be able to afford their drugs and go to the dentist is not woke politics. But I don't want to pick on just Axios here, even though there's a lot to get into. There's so much more. CNN's Michael Smerconish wants you to know Washington needs more Kyrsten Sinemas to stand in the way of the most obvious and popular reforms. Just listen.
But Manchin and Sinema are deserving of our praise, not our criticism. Their refusal to simply fall in line and instead exhibit some independence is both a rarity in Washington and a reflection of their diverse constituencies. Consider that Sinema's Arizona constituents pretty evenly divide between R's and D's and I's.
For the 1 millionth time, Kyrsten Sinema is not responding to the political preferences of her constituents. As Matt Iglesias pointed out recently, Sinema is literally posing the most popular elements of her own party's agenda. She opposes raising taxes on the wealthy and corporations, as we've demonstrated here. Repeatedly taxing the rich is extremely popular in a bipartisan way. But to make matters even worse, she instead floated a carbon tax, which would be wildly unpopular and also would fall on working class people. And of course, the prescription drug pricing reform that she has decided to oppose after being bought off by pharma has like 80% support. It is literally the top priority of the American people. Here's a recent poll that listed all of the priorities of the reconciliation plan, and more Americans said that prescription drug pricing reform was their top priority than anything else in the entire plan. It is insanely popular. So no, Michael Smerconish, Kyrsten Sinema is not responding to diverse constituencies. She is responding to one constituency, and that would be the donor class. Last but not least, Maureen Dowd penned a real doozy here. The headline reads, Sinema stars in her own film. In it, Dowd writes, the Arizona senator's name is pronounced Sinema, and it is apt because she sweeps and sometimes, when the triathlete has a sports injury, limps through the Senate like a silent film star, the Greta Garbo of Congress, as one top Democrat called her. Let me be perfectly clear. There is nothing enigmatic or mysterious about Kyrsten Sinema. She is a very old and very predictable type in Washington. The corporate sellout, shilling for the donor class. Her only new twist on that old type is to use her identity as a shield for her pernicious and destructive agenda. And apparently, plenty establishment media types have been blinded by this type of terminal, late-stage identity politics. Or more likely, they're happy to weaponize it for a corporate agenda in the same way that Kyrsten Sinema herself does. Like now I'm supposed to be persuaded to overlook your terrible politics, not just because you're bisexual, but also because you drink wine? What? Sure, she'll keep you and your kids in unrelenting poverty, but she works out a lot, so that's what really counts here, people. Slay queen, but like literally, because your policies are killing people. And Sagar, it is unbelievable to watch the way— Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut, our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it. You get to ask us questions, all that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.